Welcome to the Fit Affiliate Podcast, where with honesty and transparency, we talk about all things fitness, coaching, and gym ownership, so that you can feel less crazy and frustrated and alone, while you also find more freedom and make more money.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fit Affiliate Podcast, joined by Chuck and Tony. How are you guys?
Good.
Fantastic.
So good.
Good. Chuck's got good vibes happening behind him. That's a good thing. In his coffee shop today. So, interesting topic today, gentlemen. I know we spoke about it briefly, but I thought today I could be the subject of your... I could throw the unknown and unknowable to you to throw back to me this week, I guess. And talk through the process of, moving through the phases of closing an affiliate, I guess. Yeah.
Well,
Good chat.
all right. Do you have questions that you would like to pose? Do you want us to pose questions to you, or do you just want it to be kind of like really free-form conversation?
Yeah, if you guys have got questions that you think that can start the free-form conversation. I don't have anything specifically that I want to ask you about the process, but just, I guess, given that it's, quite fresh, let's see what unfolds.
It's an interesting chance to have this documented in a permanent way. And it's something that, I really wish that I would have had at that stage while I was still navigating, because I think it would be a cool thing to look back at and reflect on. For anybody that is listening, that is trying to figure out context of all of it, is that, Tony and I had both previously sold our gyms prior to launching Fit Affiliate, and Lisa is in the process of selling out, parting out her gym to move into really what is a better way to capitalize on her skill set. And it's hard. It's universally hard, at least in every case and circumstance that I've talked to of an affiliate owner that has then taken themselves to the other side of it. Navigating the transition is really awkward and very difficult for a whole host of reasons. And so, maybe step one is just knowing, dude, you're not crazy for it to be a really difficult thing to navigate, even if very rationally, reasonably, and objectively, that it is the right answer for you to be in the next step of the journey.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me to deal with.
And it's that in your head that where you're going to is the right thing for you, and this has been a little bit disrupted process where it was selling, then it moved to closing rather than selling, but you kind of know where you're going to, but you've got to deal with the immediacy of the bittersweet and mixed emotions that you have, and also the emotions of other people as well, that, have thought that this thing would be there forever kind of thing, or until they chose to not use it anymore, I should phrase correctly.
Well, and I think kudos to you for stating that the way that you did, because that's something that I wish that I would have thought about. Maybe I've never really even thought about until you just said it. It's beginning with the end in mind for any of those people that do have some amount of feels or emotion that they then turn back around on you. What would it be to pose the question to them, really? Did you really think that you're still going to be coming here 4 or 5 days a week in 40 years? Did you really think that this was a permanent piece for either of us? What in life is permanent?
Yep.
Very little.
Yeah, and part of what I'd said is that, nothing truly is forever. I think one of the quotes that you sent me that, Chuck, when I was sort of battling after I'd made the announcement, was that, autumn leaves are at their most beautiful, but they have to fall for better things to grow through and come through. And I was like, oh yeah, that really makes sense to me. And it was, I know that I had reached my capacity, I guess, of, after 7.5 years of, 60-hour weeks, day in, day out, and constantly give, that you've kind of tapped out a little bit and you've reached your capacity. And the only ways forward was to have someone come in with new energy, new ideas, new focus, or that would allow me to step back and pursue other things that filled my cup, like this project, and coaching at higher levels, or the affiliate not being there. And I know that we've had a relationship for just over 2 years now as business coaches, and it's kind of like the process we've gradually been building towards this process. Now I look back reflecting where it's there are better things that you can, or more important things that you can do. This is just a step in the process that taught you everything you need for this now next part of the journey. And it's a struggle to get to that point, but when you get there, you're like, oh, yeah, it'll be good not to do 5 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. or those sort of things. And during this last week, you sort of feel guilty for thinking that, but and being excited about the new. But yeah, it's been an interesting process.
How funny is all the baggage and trauma and bullshit? Like,
yeah,
this is an interesting conversation of the head and the heart, right? Because even as you talk through it now, the way that you recount the memories of the past and assign them to your present situation, just shut up. When was the last time you spent a 60-hour week in the gym?
Yeah,
You
it's a long time.
It wasn't until you had the ability to have a staff and have systems and processes and have accurate good price points, and you got to a place of more abundance than scarcity, more free time than servitude. What we built the entire company around, the 4 freedoms, that's it. You realize that the gym had given you access to varying degrees of freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of purpose, freedom of relationships, and you're like, I made it to the finish line, and this is not the finish line that I thought would be here.
No. Yeah, I mean, I would have always thought that the finish line was continuing to do the thing. And you're right. It's as you start to discover those 4 freedoms and when I started working with you, I looked at those and I went, I had a very different, I guess, belief what I thought that they meant until I started to experience them, and I staffed out the gym more, and I went, oh, so I've got the freedom of, time and actively reducing the time, so I wasn't just busy, but it was productive time, and going, okay, what are you doing with that time? And it's not just endlessly flogging yourself into the ground and being a martyr, which were doing, and having the ability to create income. That's a decent pot of coffee, Chuck.
That's why this place is awesome. They do
nice.
a bottomless coffee, and they'll bring more out to you, which is why last night I couldn't go to sleep until I ate a bunch of Xanax, and I was having heart palpitations. Here I am doing it again.
Here he is loading up again. Yeah, and when I discovered that I had the ability just to create a service and create income, that was a big thing. And then I transitioned on to creating a product which was completely, and a business completely separate from the gym as well. It's like you've got that power to create things and to build relationships that are important and meaningful and not just hinged on the gym. So there was all those sort of things that as they came in piece by piece, you're like, oh, that changes your identity. As you know, that my identity was tied very much to being a CrossFit coach and a CrossFit gym owner, and changing those pieces of identity were probably the larger constructs in getting to this point, which I never ever thought I would not be owning the gym, but I'm okay with that.
Well, is it that you didn't think that there would ever be a point that you didn't own the gym, or that same mental construct of you just never even thought about what the end game was? Because really, did you think that at 85 you were still going to own and operate a CrossFit gym?
Well, I think we used to joke that some of the members' kids would wind up buying it, the babies. But yeah, but I didn't know what the end game was, because it's like, well, if I don't do this, what am I going to be doing? I didn't have that that picture of what else, rather than, and the only thing I had in my head was going back to a cubicle and a 9-to-5 job, and I'm like, I can't do that. I would be the world's worst employee.
Not even what else would I do? It's who am I?
Yeah, and it was if I don't have
me,
this,
it wasn't an issue of what, it was an issue of who.
So, those sort of things you've got to wrap your head around, as well as, um, being okay. I think on one of my coaching calls with you guys, I was explaining my reasons why I think, we were going to head down this path. And Tony just said to me, it's okay to say you don't want to do it anymore. That's okay. And I sort of had felt that wasn't okay to go, well, I just don't want to do some of this stuff, anymore. And I don't want to be responsible for this stuff. And he's like, it's okay to say that because that's what it is. And I was like, oh, well, yeah. So,
identity is a powerful thing.
Sorry?
I mean, all of you guys, I said identity is a powerful thing. The reason why this episode I think is important is that you're certainly not an unrepresented demographic, right? I don't think that there's any shortage of people out there who are not or do not feel exactly like you feel. I mean, it's a conversation that I think compels the vast majority of the consults to get to us, is that, it's one of two things: help me fix this or get me out of this, right? It's one or the other. And I think that for the affiliate owner, the reason this is valuable is that it's very hard to see beyond the scope of that identity that we've curated and created over the last however many years it is, some decades even. And that identity is like being the best gym owner. But when you step back from the identity and then you look at it rather as a vehicle, right? Like, is the vehicle the best vehicle for me to accomplish my dreams? And I think that for a good chunk of the affiliates, especially the ones that have been around for a long time, one of the things that they grapple with is, for sure, it's been harder than they thought, right? So like, they have no shortage of trials, tribulations, and trauma. There's also no shortage of learned experiences out of that, right? Like, the skill set that is developed inside an affiliate, we've talked about this before, is unparalleled in pretty much any other small business that you can create. So when you learn those lessons, and if you're even halfway aware of what you've learned over the 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is that you've owned the affiliate, you realize that, like, I'm not thinking big enough more often than not, right? Like, that's hard for a lot of affiliate owners to say, because they're like, I know they feel that, but then they look at like the balance sheets and the bank accounts. They're like, well, who am I to say, right? Like, this thing isn't even working. Like, why wouldn't I go there? But when posed with the question of, maybe is it not working, or is it not working because it's not your focus anymore, right? And that's really what ends up happening, is that it's not fair to you and your future, nor is it fair to your clients and the people who are involved if it's not your primary focus. And after enough time, it shouldn't be, because what ends up happening in every coach's journey is that conversation moves from hyperfixation on joints and cellular structures to large scale lifestyle transitions and other things. And then you start to really learn that, like, I don't want to talk about workouts anymore. I want to talk about bigger things. And like, my skill set, coaching, is infinitely applicable. And so most people, I think, sit in the position that you're in, where they're like, I don't think I'm thinking big enough. I don't know where to direct my attention, but I also feel very selfish because the thing that I should be putting my attention towards, the gym, isn't necessarily doing as well as it could. But that's almost always, if not literally always, because you're not giving it attention, because it's not your focus anymore, right? So it ends up becoming a host of conversations after that, which is, the feelings, the emotions, the sadness, and all those things, which you have to process. I mean, grief is grief, right? Like, there's going to be a grieving process, no doubt about it. But identity is a powerful thing because it drives us forward in many situations. But in most cases, like yours, it tends to hold us back. Until you realize that you can change your identity at any moment.
Yeah, and that was a big piece of the learning, I guess, and trying to get my head around. And I know we sort of talked around it for many weeks on my calls. Is about, well, why was that? So why was it so important to hang on? Why was I hanging on? And where, why was that such an important? Why did I attach onto that identity so much? And working through some of that old stuff and the stories and the patterns and things we tell ourselves to figure out why that was, the case, and going, okay, well, this is holding you back from, I began to see what the potential I had was, and it's like, well, this vehicle is not going to help me get to that potential.
And I think that's really hard for a lot of us that build a life and an identity around like being of service and being somebody who like does everything for the benefit of everyone else. Is initially, at least for me, like in the same conversation, like, there was a lot of like guilt and shame of like stepping away from it, like being the one to close those relationships, especially for like a lot of the, people that you're like, dude, their life is dependent on the success of this thing.
Yep.
But what allowed me to process it in a better way that got me to lean in was like that conversation of the head and the heart. It's like, dude, if my heart's not in this, that is not fair to any of these people. I am giving them a shitty version of what this could be and what it should be. And so it's incredibly selfish of me to hang on to it in order for everybody to get under-delivered because I no longer have the fucks that I had at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like Tony, it's like, Tony guided that conversation. He's like, it's okay to say you don't want to do it anymore. And like, man, I wish that somebody would have just phrased it that elegantly and basically to me. It's just like, hey, dude, it's okay to not want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, then that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The worst thing that I can do is hang on to this as it slowly dies because deep down, probably subconsciously, I kind of want it to die because at least then I'm not the one that's killing it.
And
if this thing dies from neglect, then I'm not the one that just like stabbed it to death.
Yeah, I didn't rip the cord. And I spoke to another friend of mine who, when I was first thinking about options, and he had closed his affiliate and he'd moved on to another project still in the fitness space but a completely different thing, and he just said to his members, he goes, I'm not the right person to take you forward on your journey, and you deserve to do that. And I had spoken in those terms then to my members in the video, saying it's time, I'm not the person to take you on your next level up through this journey. We've come so far now. You need to hit your potential. You need a different direction, and that's someone else to take you through
back
that.
Up for 1 second real quick, because I think it's important for all the listeners out here, because this is also kind of sounding a little bit like a sorrowful conversation, where it's like Lisa's airing her grievances. But will you, for 1 second, just tell the audience, at least so we can all be on the same page, where you're going and what you're doing now?
Yep.
Because closing the gym sounds like, we lost this whole thing. Like, you shut down the gym to move into a mindset coaching where you charge $5,000 a package.
Yep.
So,
well, and ultimately, like, isn't that what you solve for?
Sorry, Chuck?
Well, and like, ultimately, like, isn't that really what you do transact for and hope for in the gym? It's like, dude, fitness is just the tool that creates the changes in mindset, belief, and behavior in order for people to have a new identity. And so maybe the answer wasn't Lisa having more people do squat therapy. It was cutting out all the extra noise and bullshit, being like, hey, I know that you should be better at squatting and that you should work on it and give a shit. That's probably where we need to focus our time, energy, and effort for both of our benefits. You can make more progress faster with less pain if you understand the root of why you're not doing the things that you already know that you need to do.
You need to do. And, that was, so I have transitioned to coaching in a more behavioral manner rather than a, physical squats, presses, hips and shoulders. It's more about, so I developed a mindset course online and also one-on-one coaching, which I kind of stumbled into through just offering that as part of a nutrition package to members. Go, I'm really good at this and I really like it. Developed a package and that is way more valuable than any package I would ever offer to anyone coming through the gym door. $5,000 packages, which took me a long time to get my head around. And then plus now I also have the ability to have creative outlets in managing this podcast for you guys and, coaching other affiliate owners to, be their best and, so that they're in the best position to help their members as well. So it's more a higher level coaching now rather than just, having the same argument with Johnny every week about why he's not, loosening up his hips or his shoulders and stuff. And it's just more
it's
meaningful and more
ascension.
impactful. Definitely fills my cup more for sure, as well as the bank balance.
Well, it's more value for you and for them because that is coaching at a higher level.
And
So
it-
like what
money.
you accomplish in 6 weeks with people in your mindset coaching, how many years of thrusters and burpees have other people in your gym gone through and still not had the mindset change that you can now facilitate in a month and a half?
Yeah. And Tony, you're right. It is about having that clear purpose. I think sometimes in the affiliate, you think your purpose is to help people squat better or move better or lead longer lives. But, I started to look at it differently in that where can I have the most impact on people's lives and have the most, helping people change their mindset, change their perception, get rid of their stuff, or learn how to, manage that a bit better is far more impactful than, can you do a perfect, knees out squat and it's far
Serving
more
a
impactful.
purpose is serving a purpose, right? And that's, I think, where it gets very confusing because of that identity conversation back to that root sort of limitation, right? Like, it's not about the money, it's about purpose. And particularly when we decide to do this, all of us, the collectively, the affiliate community, et cetera, coaches, even L1s, L2s, like, we opted into a life of serving with purpose. And that really just means like doing everything you can to the best of your ability. There comes a point, inevitably, in any affiliate's journey where the limitations that are proposed by the identity of the affiliate stand in the way of your ability to serve with purpose, right? Like, you can't have conversations about high level behavior modifications when people are like, yeah. What about open workouts, right? Like, inevitably they pull you back to those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if your purpose pulls you to a higher calling and your skill set matches that calling, which yours did, and many other affiliate owners and coaches do, it is your job to lean into that skill set, right? And in a lot of ways, that skill set is not applicable when you have a room full of people, hundreds of them, who, for all intents and purposes, not their fault, only care about their whiteboard scores, and you need to move them to a higher level. It's better for someone else to step into your place and take that opportunity so you can move forward with your opportunity, because inevitably, in you staying with the gym and sticking around the gym, you would have had to still focus and fixate on gym level problems when you were trying to move into higher level purposeful problems. And so to move towards your goal meant that you could serve more with purpose and more people at scale. You also could inevitably make way more money doing it, but that's because you'll be able to provide more value, right? And serving with purpose is essentially that, your ability to provide value at scale. But most gym owners, affiliate owners, I think they tend to think of the affiliate as the destination, not as simply a part of the journey. And so they believe that they are tied to the long-term existence and identity that is staying with that affiliate, curating, crafting it. And maybe they are. Some don't move to a higher level purpose, and that's absolutely okay. Those people need to stay there because that's still part of their calling. But when the calling comes and you're called to serve, and at some point we're all called to serve, you don't get to say no. You can try as much as you want, but you get very, very miserable. Life becomes very, very loud the more you try to ignore it and deny it. Inevitably, it's going to call, and it's going to keep calling, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder.
And I think that's the point that I got to as well.
Let me just be very clear on that. Just so we're clear on this whole call. So Lisa's in a better place.
Yep. That sounds like Lisa's. I'm not dead though. It's not that better place. It's
a
and I
piece
think
of you had to die for another piece of you to like be born.
Yeah, and that's I guess the bit that's it took me a while to get to that, speaking of being called to serve, is like, okay, you guys could see very clearly this was something I was good at and something that needed to be out there in the world and something that happened. And how long did we talk about it before I actually sat down and built the course and did it? Because every week it was like, hey, going with the course. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm putting it together. Hey, and there was always a reason why I wasn't doing it. Oh, I haven't set up this. I haven't set up that. And then eventually you're like, you need to do this. And I just sat down one weekend and did it and realized the power of, you know, what I'd just been sitting on and twiddling my thumbs for 6 months until you were like, you know, we had numerous conversations about getting me to that point.
Because now we can have real talk on it.
Yeah.
Up until that fateful weekend where you actually got it done, for those like 6 months where you're like, I'm working on it, how much work was actually accomplished before that long weekend?
A few notes on a page and just dabbling in some videos, and that was really about it. A lot of research.
I signed up for an online course software, you know.
Yep, I did. And that was about it. And then I, you know, spent extra time learning that and figuring that out and going, oh, now I need, what's a product, what's a payment? And I just got stuck in the, as Tony would often say, chasing squirrels, you know, doing the stuff that made me feel like I was moving it forward, but I actually really wasn't, because I didn't believe, you know, in that. So yeah, it was a long process to get me to understand that this was something that, you know, and be okay with doing something that made me feel good, that was outside the affiliate and the identity I'd created. I'm an affiliate owner. Who am I to be a life coach? But then when you look around and go, that's what you're doing every day, you know, in different ways. But yeah, it's changing that identity and that perception, as well as then doing the work to build that thing when you've spent so long building Sorry?
It's the paradox. It's when the paradox of success creates a limiting belief instead of an opportunity, right? Like, and it happens to every single person, right? Like the high school student who goes to school to become an engineer and gets out of school and becomes the engineer, he's stuck at being an engineer, right? He's going to likely advance in that career. But more often than not, that same kid will also be at some point in his adult life faced with this notion that I don't really like this. I'd like to do more. And very few will call or take that calling and move towards it. The same thing happens in the affiliate owner life, right? Imagine Lisa pre-affiliate. You were limited by, you're like, can I really do this? Like, who am I to open and be this gym owner? And then you become the gym owner. And then all of a sudden you're stuck at that gym owner. So the bigger failure would have been staying right there at that current level of success and leaning into that limiting belief, and not leaning into the new opportunity, which was following your purpose and following your new skill set. But many people are limited in their belief because they see their level of success as their plateau. They don't see it as just one part of the journey. For so many people, success becomes the true destination, and they're like, "So I'm just done here." Yep. That doesn't really work, especially if your calling is to help other people.
Which, to be honest, I did feel like for me, it's like, oh, well, I've made it now. I've opened an affiliate. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I needed to do. This is something I've always wanted. So now I've opened the affiliate. That's goal achieved. Like, this is tick. Now I've got to the top of Everest. And you don't realize that it's really just base camp 1 if you think about it, and that there's much further and much more you can do. But I've always been somebody who's not been satisfied to be where I'm at. Like, I remember all through my working life, I was in a job and I was like, okay, what's the next thing? Whereas when I opened the affiliate, I was like, okay, this is the thing now. There's no next thing. This is it. You've got your gym, you've got your tribe, you're coaching, you're changing lives. This is, what more could you want? And didn't really give myself permission to think, like you said, thinking big about, well, where can this lead now, rather than this being not a vehicle but just the end point. This is the end of the line kind of thing, which is really, when on reflection now, that's really very limiting. Going, as affiliate owners, even as coaches, you've got so much more potential to do so much so many other things that have a purposeful impact rather than, squats and burpees. That's where it all starts. But, you can move on from that if you want to.
If if that is the thing that calls you, for sure, there's plenty of people that we have on the roster that have built fantastically successful gyms, and dude, this is awesome.
Mm.
I get to do a thing that I am deeply passionate about, that I love like crazy, with a team that I would be happy to hang out any day of the week and drink beers and play games with, and I have control of my work-life balance. The affiliate can be an incredible opportunity and vehicle for creating freedom. But for a lot of people, it's not until they have that freedom that they have the ability to step back and analyze, what comes next?
Mm. And it's
because, that's the weird place to get to. It's it's even weirder to have all of the problems solved in a gym.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, I still have an itch that needs to be scratched. And that's not true for everybody. Some people have gyms and they're like, dude, all of my itches are scratched and this is incredible, but you don't, at least in my view, you don't have the ability to accurately make that decision until you can get to a place of stability, until you have a real foundation. That's a lot of what the company is built around. It's it's literally in the name. Fit affiliate. How do we get your affiliate to be fit enough for you to potentially conceptualize, regularly learn and play new sports applied to your own life, your own business, your own skill set, your own coaching?
Yep. And it's, I think people, one of my things was I perceived that if I didn't have the affiliate anymore, that was a failure. And I remember another powerful conversation we had is, I think it was you, Chuck, who said, what part of anything you've done in the last 7.5 years is a failure, based on, the lives you've changed, the impacts, what you've learnt and grown. And if you look at metrics on a page, you might go, okay, well, that wasn't, it's not, multi-million-dollar, and it's not all those sort of things. But then what are the really important metrics, the ones that aren't necessarily measured by, dollars and cents kind of thing? And once I changed my perception that I had failed if I didn't keep the doors open, things changed really quickly for me around my thought process around not having that affiliate and being okay to move on to something else. And that's where I explored the option of selling, which was not viable due to, external circumstances. But and then going, yeah, but okay, it's not selling, so what's the next step? Okay, it has to close. That's that, because I can't do this thing anymore. It's not working.
Can't be half pregnant.
No, and even had I gone down the path of selling, I still would have had one foot in, one foot out. And whilst ever you're distracted by the data, even though I wouldn't have had ultimate responsibility, I know what I'm like. And while you're still distracted by those day-to-day things, then and because it's comfortable, you've known it, it's easy, rather than leaning into this other work to do, which is unknown, uncomfortable, and it's not, doesn't feel as safe as going in, unlocking the doors and putting up the roller doors every day for 7.5 years. So it's very easy to revert back to that, which, why did I revert back to doing a free trial? Because it was safe and it felt, comfortable, rather than, being different to everybody else. So it's the same thing. It was, if I was still in there even partially, that's what I was going to be doing. And I didn't want to be, I knew that for me to succeed outside that, I really needed to go all in, which is what I did when I opened the affiliate. I didn't have a regular job. I went all in. Every day I got up and how do I not fuck this up? I need it to work. This is my retirement kind of thing. And then once you change your perception about that, that doesn't have to be your retirement fund. It can be, there are other things that you can be doing. It is a bit of a game changer. And I know when I first came to you, I was, I've got to keep the affiliate because I had nothing else. I didn't have anything else to look to or look forward to or even think about. It's well, I need this thing to work. And it's only when you get to that realization that okay, this thing is stopping me from fulfilling, other potentials, then okay, how do I solve that problem? Rather than the
Well,
problem of
like,
staffing.
I will tell you that, like, I will give you some comfort and security in knowing that, like, even if it does work out completely well in the context of ownership, and I'll give like my perspective and Tony's, because in two different ways, like we had both really reached like the pinnacle of gym ownership. Like we weren't hanging out at base camp, like we'd summited it. Like I
Yep.
lived in Austin, and our gym was in Sarasota. It's thousands of miles. I was involved in literally nothing. And then like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so like it's maybe like that can give some people out there some peace if they're trying to like figure out like, well, do I have it in my head? Do I have it in my heart? Like, what is the next step? It's like you need to get to a place where you've at least got enough stability to do the soul searching and figure out what's best, not just for yourself, but your coaches, your staff, your clients, your family. It's a decision that impacts a lot more in either direction, right? Like opening an affiliate, closing an affiliate, selling an affiliate. Like these are things that, man, that stone sends a lot of ripples through a lot of water. And I think that like there are a lot of situations that are straight win-wins. Where like if you can get away from your own bullshit and like your own pieces of like the stories that you tell yourself, like you can be like, you know what, this really is best for everybody. And that's entirely a heart thing, right? Like in the head, you're like, wait, you had a business that you didn't have to do anything for, and it still operated. People still signed up, and money still showed. I was like, yeah, but what's the point?
Yeah. And I guess when I first had the affiliate, I used that as a distraction when we talk about what's best for, you and your family and things like that. I really did work in it and on it relentlessly because I was using that to distract me from other things I perceived I had or didn't had or didn't want to deal with in my life. And then when I went through a process of unpacking some of that stuff, and then you find yourself in a different place in relationships and in your life, you're like, I actually want to be home more, and I want to be more present when I'm home, and I want to be, not stuck to my computer or stuck to my phone, 24/7. You realize, these were things I was using. The affiliate was a convenient cover to, I can't do these things because I'm busy, but it's like, well, you didn't want to, if that makes sense.
It's hard for people to understand. I mean, as humans, we can paint and portray our fears in like 8K detail.
Yeah.
But at best, as it applies to our dreams, it's like a 3-year-old's finger painting, right? Like, I'm not sure if that's a dog or a rhinoceros. Like, and so, in that should tell everybody listening something, right? Like, because I guarantee that's a reality for you. You can clearly outlay and line out all your fears, failures, or potential fears and failures. But when I ask you where you're going, I get a fuzzy picture at best. That should tell you what's guiding your journey. It's fear of failure more than it is drive for opportunity. And when you decide to become a coach, it's no longer being about a drive for motivation. You're driven by obligation. It's period. Like you don't have a choice. You have to help. And when somebody pays you and hires you and contracts with you, you stay until the job is done. But that also means that the people who don't pay you and the people you come across, they're also just as important to you because you can't just stop coaching. Right? You don't just pass an innocent bystander. When you're presented with this opportunity or this awareness that somebody is struggling with their own limitations and they can't see their own opportunity, as a coach, you can't look away from that. As a trainer, you probably won't even notice it. But when you make that move and you make that ascension to becoming a coach, those things are everywhere and you won't stop until you have at least touched on or helped any one of those situations. Everything ends. Every business ends, whether we wanted to or not. Whether it be we built it to sell, we were able to be acquired, merged, whatever that looks like. We were able to get out of it equitably. It doesn't really matter. All things must come to an end at some point, and potentially that end point may be, for most of us listening to this, like the day you die, right? But then what happens? There's a lot of people in that gym who Well, they probably needed a bigger consideration than just like, I'm just going to hold this thing until I die. Maybe there's a better solution. Maybe there's a better vision. Maybe there's a better mission. But you have to understand what your obligation is. And I think for a lot of people, they're clinging to an identity that is in fact limiting their opportunity, and that's what they need to address more than anything.
And I think that's a really good point, because I remember when I first started being a trainer, I can walk through the shopping center and go, that person's going to have a knee issue. You just see hips, knees, shoulders. But now, from working at this high level, I actually see other things, and you're like, okay, we need, and you're more confident to have those conversations with people going, okay, I can't let you not talk about this now and work through this, which is, some of the conversations I had with you guys along this coaching journey is, something would come up and you're like, oh, well, really glad you brought that up, because we saw it a few weeks ago, and, we were just waiting for you to get to your own timeline and, or get to your own realization. But if you didn't, we were going to bring it up because we couldn't let it go on without addressing it. And whether that be, health or, my identity stuff that you guys had seen very early on, you're like, we're going to talk about this at some point. And as coaches, you see that other stuff that's going on. I was talking to you about coaches and rosters and, members who are being dicks, and you're like, you're just not happy in your life right now, and you're not being authentic. So those were other conversations that it led to. And it's like, oh, okay. So, they're powerful conversations when you have a coach who's willing to ask you those hard questions and hold you to account.
Coaching transcends the training floor. Full stop, right? I mean, there's no way around that. Coaching literally never ends. And so even without an affiliate, you don't just stop coaching because you don't have to write whiteboards anymore, right? For some, maybe leaving affiliate is like, I hated that. I'm never going to coach again. That's okay. I mean, sometimes we find ourselves accidentally in a possession of things that we probably should have never possessed in the first place. That's not the conversation that we're talking about here. We're talking about the coaches who are struggling with the identity, or the gym owners who are struggling with the identity that I know I'm destined for something bigger. I'm very grateful for the time that I've had with the gym. I'm grateful for the lessons that I've learned through the gym. I'm grateful for the help that I was able to provide through the gym. I know there's a bigger conversation, and I know, unfortunately, the gym is a distraction from that conversation. These are the people that we're talking to. Right? What is the next step for you? And you do need to, like Chuck said, get to a place of clarity so you can understand and you can step back and look at what you enjoy doing and how you can enjoy doing it. And most often you'll be presented with the reality that the four walls are limiting me more than they're helping.
And being, okay with letting that go. And for like last week when I did make the announcement to my members, all I did was feel, there was a lot of emotion that came out, like nothing bad, just general, people were sad or feeling a bit lost and feeling responsible. And someone said to me, it's up to us to be responsible now. You've taught us all the skills that we need to do to do these things. You've taught us, and now it's up to us to take care of ourselves. And you can't be responsible for all of us and our choices and our, what happens to us. That's not what this is about. And I thought that was a very helpful conversation to have, and a helpful perspective is that, you've spent 7.5 years doing what's best for us. Now it's time for you to do what's best for you and be okay with that. And
it's all a journey.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough. That was luck. I'll consider it luck. I was microphones. I was lucky enough to come to that realization super early on when we had the gym. It was a big piece of what allowed me to manage things like people, moving or running into like financial trouble, or just any given reason that anybody cancels ever.
Yeah.
Cool. You're meant to move on. Like I've taught you the things that I needed to teach you, and like if you're like, hey, you know what? Like I don't really need or want a whole lot of coaching on my thrusters and snatches anymore. You know what? Like me and my wife have an awesome garage gym put together, and you know what? Like I have now problem solved nutrition for me for the rest of my life. I know exactly how to eat, to look, feel, and perform the way I want to feel. Like, cool. Then we're done here. And like, it's super unethical for me to hang on to you anyway and just collect dollars to not deliver more value to you. And like, oh, by the way, there's only so much space that exists in any given gym.
Yeah,
that's probably like a thing that should be talked about more in the industry. Is like, what is the ascension plan for any of your clients long term? I mean, it's great to keep people long term, but what if you end up at capacity? And what if you look up and you're like, man, I've got a gym full of really fit people. Awesome, cool. I would never be bummed that a gym had a whole bunch of fit people, but like, what about everybody else that exists outside of the four walls there that can no longer be served? It's really important, I think, to really look at, in the lens of coaching, we want to do it at a high level, and we want to do it well. The greatest possible way to create return on investment and value for somebody is to teach them all of the lessons that like you have taken in yourself, distill them to them through like your own packaging, your own like version of like what the content is and how you communicate thoughts, ideas, analogies, metaphors, how you help them build better behaviors and beliefs. And you're like, cool. I have dedicated my entire life to figuring this shit out for people like you to solve the types of problems that you have. Here you go. Do these things. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Like, Lisa will never need to go and join somebody's gym. Tony will never need to go and join somebody's gym. I will never need to go and join somebody's gym. I might, but it will never be based out of need. It would only be based out of, like, just a desire. And that's very, very different than, like, somebody coming in and they're like, hey, I need this. Because if I don't figure this out, I don't get to see my kids graduate high school. I don't get to walk my daughter down the aisle. If I don't figure this out, I'm dead.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of those people. A lot more of those people that need to be served. And the goal, I think the goal really should be like framed for all of us in the industry is like, how do you teach people the lessons so that they can be self-reliant? Because like, dude, none of these relationships should exist forever in a transactional capacity. They can exist in a relationship of reciprocity, like because we decide that like, hey, like, you know what? I choose to be in your life, you choose to be in my life, like because it is mutually beneficial and we're moving forward, but like I don't need to pay you to teach me how to snatch yet again. I'm good.
Yeah, we've got to that point. And that was a big realization to me, is like, you know, I guess even for a parent, like, you know, with your young son Liam, like you want to send him out in the world to live his life, and you will have taught him his foundations, but you know, he's got to go and do his thing, and it's not necessarily always being attached to you. So it's kind of like, you know, fly, be free, be
I'm not
great
there
now.
yet.
No, I know that's a long time away for you, but
I'm like, nah, man, you want to do the failure to launch thing? You want to live here for the rest of your life? That's rad.
Yeah.
That's rad. I would like to just hang out with you every day. But
cool.
you know that's not what's best, right? Like that's a super shitty, selfish thing. And I think like that's probably the thing to really like look at is, you know, for the affiliate owners out there that feel like they're just hanging on because they have some weird obligation to, like, are you just really being super selfish?
Yeah, because it is to both yourself and to the members who, you know, should be, you know, soaring and challenging and not just going through the motions, for sure.
But, you know, like you don't have the ability to really even, you know, play any of those mental exercises out until you're like not doing 60-hour weeks and not doing free trial and not like just, you know, having everybody churn out in 3 months. Like until you fix the basics and build a foundation, like you don't even have a clear ability to step away and be like, do I still love this thing and it doesn't love me? Or is like this just a big messy thing that I owe it to everybody, myself, my family, my clients, my staff, to like get under control, to turn into a business, to build some amount of like safety, stability, and security to, so that we can all have better decision-making ability. Because when you are working 60-hour weeks and you are there from 5 in the morning to like 7 at night, and you still don't know if all the bills are going to get paid, like everybody's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to burn it down.
Yeah,
like that's not the right answer. So like you owe it to yourself and everybody involved to like get it to a good place to be able to have those hard conversations in the mirror and in the dark with yourself about like what's best for them, what's best for me.
And
where does this go? If I had a magic wand, what would I want? If I had a magic wand, would I want a 100,000 square foot gym with a whole bunch of sublease spaces to like chiropractors and physical therapists and like all that? Because for some people, like that might be it. They're like, no, you know what? Like I love this thing and I want to double down and I want to play better at a higher level.
Yep.
But there's also a whole lot of us. It's like, hey, the skill set that I've developed, the person that I've become, the identity that I now either embody or am working to embody, like this is no longer the vehicle for anybody. But you can't make that decision when the whole thing is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and that is very much the process where, you know, you've got to get the fire out and get things on an even keel where you can sit and make that decision. And I've said it a million times to people this week going, it's going to be okay. Everyone's going to be okay. Everyone will land exactly where they're meant to be, me included. And, you know, in a even less than a couple of months, people will be like, okay, like, you know, it'll even out and everyone will go, this was, you know, as I said to the members, you know, don't cry because it's gone. Be happy for that existed and what it gave you, and then build on that. That's the best thing that you can do. And, you know, we're all going to be okay. And I guess that's my reflection and message that, you know, to other affiliate owners, it's like, you know, I'm in the middle of the storm a little bit at the moment, so it still feels like everything's a bit up and down. But I do know that everything will be okay because I know what's on the other side, and what's on the other side is worth this.
You are only literally just beginning. Literally just beginning. All of you guys are actually that are listening to this. So start looking forward and stop looking backwards.
Yeah. And I think that's
probably like that. Yeah.
Good little note to put a bow on that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, you know what, like, and end it on that one.
Yeah,
like, dude, you're just getting started, and like, regardless where you're at, you know.
Yep.
Think further down the road than most of us have the ability to because of the present situations that we're constrained in. But if you step away from like where your thoughts, stories, beliefs, and identity are tied to, and you're like, well, where do I want to be when I've got great grandkids? Like, where would I want to be when I'm looking at the last couple of years of my life? Not like, I don't know what I want to do for the next 40 or 50. You know, like,
and
you got a big story to tell.
Don't be afraid to think about, well, what if, and understand where you're, and to see something, be good at something, and not say, oh, that's just part of my job. It's something that you could be passionate about and add even more value with. So that's kind of, it's not just as I described the mindset stuff earlier, it's just something that I do. It's like, no, dude, this is something more powerful, and being able to recognize that. So good chat today, gentlemen.
I'm going to put one other thing in that before you allow us to step away. Is there's also no permanence in whatever you do next.
Yep.
You can always open another gym. And especially if most people think about like the people that they were and the resources that they had, and the complete lack of like awareness and skills, like the worst thing that happens is you put yourself right back into the thing that you're doing now in a much, much better way, where you have way more success, a whole lot faster with way less bullshit. So like, you can always go back.
You can always go back. That's for sure. All right. Well, it was fun being in the hot seat today, kind of. But I think it's good to share this evolution. So thank you, gentlemen, and we'll see you on the next one.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to the Fit Affiliate Podcast. If this was helpful to you and you would like to jump on a 1-hour call to solve one problem for free, click the link.